What's good, family? Welcome to the season premiere of the Pickup Game on the Jeff J Says YouTube channel. You already know the vibes. We talking ball with you. All NBA talk, and this season, I got the daily double right now, the dynamic duo to my left and to my right, covering the Knicks beat. Kristian Winfield, Chris Splash in the building, and CJ Holmes, home scribe, covering the Nets beat, both for the Daily News, and we are here to give you the season preview of New York Hoops basketball. Fellas, how you feeling, man? It's good to finally get this joint rocking.
Listen, you see the jersey, you know what type of time it is, bro. I'm feeling sensational. Wait, Jeff, time out. Are you a Giants fan? Are you? Oh,
I want to win. No, actually, not. Yes, this week I am. Now we got the Browns out of here, so it's all good. It should be 2-1. We should be 2-1. This guy.
Hey, dudes beat the Patriots and they want to talk. Like, that's crazy.
Hey, we're not talking. We just
beating the Patriots.
We just taking notes, bro. Bro, it's not about beating the Patriots. Number one, it's about how we beat the Patriots. Number two, most importantly, it's about how Aaron Rodgers looked. The boy looked like he's 26. All right, if we got a 26-year-old Aaron Rodgers, good luck. Anyway, we're not here to talk football. We here to talk basketball.
You ain't see that quarterback play since Broadway Joe, bro.
Man, I ain't seen that quarterback play since Monday night. That's crazy.
I literally used to pray for times like this. It's been a dark, man. Our best era is associated with the butt fumble. Like, it's hand in hand. We had that great Mark Sanchez era underscored by the butt fumble. Like, we have nothing. Now we have something. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna stop talking. We here. I'm sorry.
I feel you. And you know what? Jaden Daniels looking great. The Jets looking like they're competent. The Giants didn't embarrass me this week. So we're all happy. We're all happy. The NFC East is NFC Easton like it's never NFC East before. And it's going to be 17 weeks of hell. So I'm ready for that. But what ain't going to be hell is this NBA season. Can't wait. We got Media Day on Monday popping off. We're less than a month, I want to say, away from training camp, fellas. And y'all got a lot going on. Y'all are busy men. First off, my guy, Chris, you was at an event earlier today, Earl Monroe, opening schools. Tell us about it, man.
Oh, man, it was a great time. Number one, so the entire purpose of the event was to underscore to a lot of these youth in the South Bronx that, you don't have to be a basketball player to find a career in basketball, right? So that's the whole purpose of why Earl Monroe and company decided to launch this school right off the train. Or you take the 2 or the 5 to 3rd Avenue, 149th, you walk a couple blocks. Boom. And it was a great time. Adam Silver was there. Julius Randle was there. Tom Thibodeau was there. Allen Houston, John Stark, Tim Thomas. This was on Walt. Clyde Frazier was there. It was just Knicks royalty for a good cause. And it was a great time. Tom Thibodeau ended up being there. And it's what the media does in New York, man. We ended up having him, and he was kind of in a corner. He was like, you guys are cornering me. But we were just there talking to him, and then he ended up, actually, we'll probably get into it now, he ended up discussing Julius Randle, right? There's been reports that Randle may or may not be ready for the season. Tom said today, hey, look, he said he thinks he's healthy, right? He was asked if Julius is healthy. He said, I think so. We'll see. Training camp obviously starts on Tuesday, right? So, for a guy like Julius, especially with Mitchell Robinson's injury, and that is sources are saying going to keep him out until December, January, the Knicks need the bodies that they can get. But if they can get Julius Randle, and this is where it gets tricky, right? Because you don't want to take Julius Randle fresh off of a shoulder surgery and put him at the center position, right? Like that's dangerous. But Tom talked about it on NBA.com. If you can use him at that center position for maybe 3 minutes here, 2 minutes there, and not overload him, you're looking at Julius at the 5. You're looking at probably OG, Mikal Bridges at the 4-3. Then you got Jalen and your pick at guard. You can go crazy and put Josh in the lineup. You can get Deuce on the loose. You can bring Dante in there. There's a whole bunch of ways you can go, right? So that if we're talking about training camp coming up, lineups are going to be one of the huge things that they're getting into. And then obviously we're talking about Julius at the 5. The real question here is who's going to step up with Mitch being out? Is it going to be Jericho Sims, who got the start the last time he went down? People forget Isaiah Hartenstein. Yes, he did have that surgeons last year, but Jericho Sims got the start when Mitch Robinson first went down with his stress fracture last December, right? And then what happened was crazy. Jericho Sims goes up for a jump ball, lands odd on his ankle. Now he's out of the rotation.
Yeah.
Isaiah Hartenstein gets to start. You never hear from the starting position again, right? Isaiah Hartenstein just had that crazy of a season. Jericho should be completely healthy now, ready to go and motivated. And now you got Precious Achiuwa as well. And people forget how good of a combo Precious Achiuwa and OG Anunoby were on defense, not only in New York, but also in Toronto. So, training camp, there's a lot of storylines. I can't wait. It starts in Charleston, South Carolina. They got some great food down there. I'm looking forward to having a good time and kicking it with some of these with these players. It's going to be a good time.
Hey, man,
Yeah, man. And wait, what happened? Hold on.
I was saying Charleston's a good spot. Back when I was at Auburn, we used to play in the Charleston Classic. We played Isaiah Cannon out there when he was at Murray State. Boy, cooked us. You could probably find that online. That shit was terrible. But now, long story short, Charleston's a good spot. You're gonna have a good time down there.
Charleston is the city of big backetry. Like the amount of food, it's not even just the kind of food, but the portion sizes that they give you down there. They had training camp down there last year. I gained like 7 pounds in a week. It was crazy.
I can smell the gravy right now. Like, I can envision the biscuit. Like, my back just increased in width, double the diameter and whatnot. Like, bruh, like I'm telling you, oh man, you making me so hungry right now. But let's talk about that Mitchell Robinson's injury, right? I think people are making a whole deal over what they're going to do in terms of are they going to go for a trade. I can say on this front, if they are able to hold serve with their current group, because let's talk about it. Everybody know you need a center. So if you go out on the market and you need a center, it's just like trying to buy one of these new cars out here. The price is up. You remember when we got hit with that with the hurricane and all them cars got flooded and all of a sudden the dealerships doubled the price?
Hey.
Funny how that works. How you surge pricing on new cars, but I ain't even gonna go too crazy. I think when we talk about the 5 position, we usually think about it from a defensive perspective, right? When you say blank at the 5, you're thinking about, well, they're going to guard big men. I think with the Knicks and just in general, to update it, when you have multiple people who could play the 5, I'm thinking about it like Julius at the 5 on offense, OG at the 5 on defense. That way you get maximum versatility. The bigs on the offensive end are going to have to guard Julius. They're going to have to guard Julius, and he's going to be quicker than them, probably going to be stronger than them low-key, and they're going to create tons of matchups. And on defense, I saw it with my own 2 eyes. Game 4 in Philly. OG along with Precious, they can make it happen. They can make it happen and make guards 1 through 5, right? And OG can guard 3 through 5 elite in an elite way. So I think for now, I don't know if I would go out on the market and go to get another center, just knowing what it is. What have you heard, Chris, on that front? Like whether or not they're going to test the market. I've been hearing some names being thrown around. It's giving real bargain binish right now, but you tell me, what have you been hearing?
One thing that we know about this front office is that they're not just going to rush and make a trade just for the sake of making a trade, right? They're not going to be pressured into making a bad deal. Like you said, the market right now knows, hey, for a team that needs the center, yesterday's price is not today's price, right? Like that's what the market is saying. However, at the same time, this is a team where you look at the reason when they re-signed Precious Achiuwa 1 year, $6 million, and he waived his no trade clause. Now the Knicks might not rush into a trade, right? But if you get to December and January, and remember, it's not just about replacing Mitchell Robinson now that he's expected to be out until January. It's about having a suitable backup for when he does come back, right? The Knicks are delaying this process a little bit so that he can come back and have a healthy rehab and have a healthy on-ramp back. But in terms of backing him up going forward, that's what Precious and Jericho are using this time to prove while he's out. And then once he gets back, someone's got to be there and play that backup 5. That was one of the biggest concerns entering the season before we got the news that Mitch was going to be out, right? So there's always the idea that a trade could happen. That being said, Jericho Sims was the training camp standout last year in Charleston, and the ankle injury that once he got his chance really set him back. And then Precious showed that defensive versatility that we spoke about. We see those videos now. Off-season videos are always off-season videos, right? We see everybody post off-season videos, and they come into the season and they look a
Shooting
totally different way.
Hey,
threes,
don't start. Don't start. Don't
killer
start.
crossovers.
We don't want to get
Don't start.
videos, man. I know you got ammo. I say all that to say, will the Knicks and are the Knicks looking at options? Absolutely. Are they going to be rushing into one? You got two options right there. You have three if Julius is healthy, right? And no one's talking about the guy on the two-way contract who got drafted with the last pick, Ariel Porty. When the Knicks took him, my pops called me and he goes, "Yo, my God, I can't wait. They got the Togolese Hakeem. He thinks he's the Togolese Hakeem Olajuwon." I'm like, "All right, pops, you got to relax." But listen, you got options. I think they're gonna look through these options and kind of assess the situation. December 15th is the date that you look for because that's when Preston Achiuwa's no trade clause. That's when he's eligible to be traded as someone who just signed a contract. So until then, I think maybe they look for someone to bring into training camp, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's another situation. You got 16 guys right now for 15 spots. And that battle right now boils down to Marcus Morris and Landry Shamet. Both of those guys, you can make cases for them on the roster. So it's a lot. This is going to be a really fun training camp. But to answer your question, will they be looking for centers? Yes. Are they going to rush into making a move? I don't think so.
I like that. All right, CJ, let's go to the other side. Let's go to BK downtown. Let's get the vegan jerk chicken popping. You already know the vibes. Barclays Center, some of the best food. Give it up. Some of the best food in the NBA world. Barclays Center, some of it be hitting. It'll hit your pocket, but it be hitting. If you're hungry. If you're hungry, do not go to the Barclays Center.
They got $10 beef patties in there, bro.
Yeah, the tacos, bro. Them 3-piece tacos go insane.
Club
Right
Barclays
outside
go
the media
stupid.
section too. It be tempting me every night.
Dog, I went to the Liberty Aces last year. I thought I was at an industry event. It was different. It was kind of different. It was kind of different in there. But let's talk, CJ, about the Nets. Obviously, in the wake of the Mikal Bridges trade, everybody's wondering, what are they going to do next? Are they dragging for Flagg? Is this a rebuild? Is this a retool? What's the vibe that you're getting?
It's a rebuild, but in some ways I kind of view it as a retool because I believe that, through the assets that they accumulated through the Mikal Bridges trade, the Nets are in a position to be a lot better, a lot quicker than a lot of people realize. I mean, they have 4 first-round picks in next year's draft alone. And they're going to have tons of cap space in the 2025 offseason. But in terms of this season, I think that they have a chance to be a lot better early than people realize. They have Jordi Fernandez coming in as head coach, first year of the franchise. Everything I've heard about Fernandez has been off the charts, from the way he strategizes to how he motivates men. And I think because of those factors, he's going to be able to maybe find some combinations and certain lineup strategies that Jacques Vaughn just didn't see. And I think he'll be able to maybe get more out of this roster, especially if you got a guy like Ben Simmons. And we do this every year, right? But especially if you got a guy like Ben Simmons who's going to come into this season healthy and perhaps stay healthy, right? You're looking at this roster a little bit different, right? You got Cam Thomas, right? Cam Thomas has been polarizing since he's entered the league. Is he a future all-star? Is he just a chucker, right? I got to talk to Cam at MSG towards the end of the season. I think it was their second to last game of the year. And among the things we talked about, Cam just said, I want respect, right? He wants respect. If you look at just the numbers he's put up, the scoring feats he's accomplished, right? A lot of young players around the league, especially those guys taking the lottery, I mean, the national media would be drooling over them. They'd be getting a lot more respect than the respect that Cam Thomas is getting right now. A lot of that's out of his control. His minutes have been inconsistent since entering the league. He's had to deal with his fair share of injuries on his own. But when he's healthy and he's on the court and he's dialed in, I mean, he's one of the most entertaining shows in basketball. Now, Cam is rookie extension eligible right now, right? So, I mean, he has a lot to prove this year. It's going to be a tanking year for the Nets. I do think that they're going to start the season better than a lot of people think. And when they kind of lose the sight of the tank, that's when I think we're going to start seeing guys move, like a Cam Johnson, like a Dorian Finney-Smith, maybe a Dennis Schroeder, right? But even in a tanking season, like there's a lot of guys on this roster who have things that they need to prove individually, right? Nick Claxton just got 4 years, $100 million. We were just talking about the values of centers in this league, right? That's a perfect example, right? You got guys like Zaire Williams, who's going to be on this roster, a former lottery pick who just hasn't been able to stay on the court. Then you got Cam Thomas. Cam Thomas is going to be out there chasing respect this season, whether the Nets are contending, whether they're bottom dwellers. He's going to be out there trying to play his best basketball and prove to this country, prove to the rest of the league that he can be all-star. He's more than just a high-volume scorer. Mm-hmm. And I think he has it in him. You know, Jordi Fernandez is coming in. He's going to do some different things with Cam. He's going to put the ball in his hands more, not necessarily like, you know, from a scoring standpoint, but he's going to put the ball in his hand and expect him to create. Think the role that De'Aaron Fox was in out there. That's the role that Cam Thomas is going to play this year, right? So, you know, I would love to sit here and to say that the Nets are going to be as good as Cam Thomas takes them, right? But that's not going to be the case. It's going to be a rough year in Brooklyn. But I do think that this team is set up to do great things a lot sooner than people realize.
All right. I like that. Yeah. Pickup game joining us. Chris, CJ, Knicks and Nets beat. We are previewing New York hoops this season. Let's go to the comments. We got some good questions. Ace Anthony, thank you so much for your comment. He says, any chances that Killer Cam Thomas is an all-star this season?
Ooh-wee.
Lord knows he wants it, right? Lord knows he wants it. It's going to be tough because at the end of the day, you could have made an argument that Mikal Bridges should have been an all-star last season. You can make a strong argument that he should have been an all-star, but the Nets were not playing good basketball, right? So if you're asking me, can Cam Thomas be an all-star? Well, are the Nets playing good basketball? Because if he has the numbers, he's going to have a chance, right? But I just think that it's really poised to be a rough year in Brooklyn. Might start strong, but, you know, the direction is clear. That's one thing that Sean Marks accomplished this offseason. The direction of this franchise is clear. And I just, you know, if the Nets are struggling, I just still do not see Cam getting that recognition that he, you know, some might believe he deserves.
I got a different opinion. I think Cam Thomas is about to average 31 points per game this season. I think Cam Thomas is about to get his first All-Star appearance. And I think it's going to happen at the same time the Nets have one of the worst seasons in franchise history. Why? Because it's the Cam Thomas show. And he's going to come out there and he's going to be like Isaiah Thomas playing for the Boston Celtics, except this time they're not going to be that good. Right? Except this time they try as hard as Cam did. The Nets couldn't get the win, but Cam still ended up with 30-something, and they had a chance almost in winning some of these games that they had no business winning. You brought up a point. You brought up a point about them being better out of the gate than maybe people might expect. I just pulled up their schedule. Start the season, you're in Atlanta on the opener, then you're in Orlando, then you host the Bucks, the Nuggets, and then you go to Memphis, right? That's feasibly 0-5, right? And then you got Chicago, Detroit. Those are toss-ups. You could probably win both of those games. But then you got Memphis, Boston, Cleveland, New Orleans, Boston again, the Knicks 2 times in a row. You see what I'm saying? I understand you're trying to peddle hope, but I don't know that it's about to.
This is why I feel that way though. If you look at the Nets and how they started last season, when they were on one accord, when they were playing hard, when they were moving the ball around, when Ben was out there dishing it, getting back, guarding on defense, they were in a lot of the games they played in, right? And, you know, when I got on the beat, they were 500. And that was like 2 games after they hit 20-something threes against the Chicago Bulls at Barclays Center. So what I'm saying is the roster that we see, the expected roster entering 2024-25 is a lot similar to the roster entering last season. And with better guidance, better coaching, maybe guys utilized in better positions, you know, I think the Nets have the personnel to be really solid. That's not just me selling hope. Like, look at this roster. Dorian Finney-Smith, right? Cam Johnson, like Dennis Schroeder. There's a reason why ahead of last season's trade deadline, teams were interested in the pieces that the Nets have, because at the end of the day, the Nets have some great pieces. It's how those pieces fit together that's going to define them, right? And I think with Jordy's guidance, right, retuning some things, putting Cam Thomas in a better position to be successful, you know, pressing, you know, Nick Claxton develop his game in ways that he has been asked to do before, I think that the Nets can surprise some people. I hear what you're saying about the schedule, right? But it's a new season. All these teams starting at 0, right? And the Nets have shown that, with the right motivation, with the right direction, with the right execution, they can be a good team.
Yeah, I say they got the right pieces. They might get pieced up a bit. But you know what?
That's crazy.
Cam Thomas is
don't
a
have
return.
Mikal Bridges no more.
Nah, let me tell
Bridges
you.
is no longer on that team.
I'm gonna tell you something about Cam Thomas. I appreciate Cam Thomas because this dude is a return to the glory days of buckets. We ain't trying to look at advanced analytics. I don't care about your win shares. I don't care about your box plus minus. I care about the ball going in the basket. That's what Cam Thomas does. And if anything, Nets fans should be happy that they have someone, a future star, if he goes on the right trajectory, someone who they can build around. Because I know they wanted to build around Mikal, but I don't know if they believed it, if the Nets ownership believed it, if Mikal believed it, and everybody was just lying until we get to the end of the relationship and we ask, what are we? It's like, yo, have we reached our natural conclusion?
Whoa, it's hitting too close to home, bro. It's hitting too close to home, right?
Don't holler. But CJ, talk to me about that. What do you think was, from what you've heard, from what you've gathered, what was the deciding factor to say, you know what? Send them home. Send them to Villanova. Let's get the assets that we need and let's just move on.
Man, I just think that at some point the Nets front office, they just came to the same conclusion that we all came to 3 months into the season, right? Mikal is a very good two-way NBA player, right? But he's not an alpha. He knows that. You know what I'm saying? He's not Batman. He's Robin, right? And I think the Nets might have thought that, I don't know what their strategy was early in the offseason, but, perhaps they kind of scoured the free agent market and decided that they can't really build the team that they want. So at that point, you got a guy, Mikal Bridges, who, according to all reports, dating back to the trade deadline, right? There were tons of teams around the NBA willing to give an arm and a leg for the kid, right? I think the Nets finally, came to that conclusion. They got the best possible deal I feel like they could have got for him. And they just decided to start accumulating assets and, just choose a direction and get the show on the road, right? There were just too many holes to build a contender immediately. You just hired a new head coach. You got a bunch of young, unproven players who are still trying to find their fits in the NBA. So I think they just decided that, the time was now to, move off this fantasy that, you can build a contending team in the Eastern Conference around the number 2. That just wasn't the case. They came to that realization. They decided to move on.
I think let me just chime in. I think on top of all that, Josh Hart is single-handedly responsible for swinging the pendulum in terms of the perception, right? Because after a while, it's not enough that your friends that you won with in college are on your rival team right across the bridge. It's also not enough that team is also really good while your team is not that good. Your friend from that team is publicly, every single time he has an opportunity to, telling you how bad it is to be over that way. While like he told us about the Squidward meme. That thing was hilarious when he said that Mikal Bridges was like Squidward and SpongeBob watching all his friends, because it was kind of true. Every single time that they would play, the Knicks they would gather up after the game. They're talking, they're having fun, and then what do you know? Mikal has to go to the Nets locker room while his friends go to the. I think that played an underrated part in this deal. And then, as CJ mentioned, on top of that, 5 draft picks, a first round swap. You know what I'm saying? Like, in a way, you can't beat that.
I wrote months ago, right? I was asked the same question months ago, and back when there were rumors that Mikal Bridges was untouchable. He's the guy that the Nets want to build the franchise around. I'm just like, I'm sitting here like, everybody has a price. I don't care who you are. Everyone in this league has a price. Maybe a select few, like your Stephen Curry's, your LeBron James's. They kind of dictate things on their own terms. But a guy like Mikal Bridges, he ain't safe. No one on that roster is safe. No one on your roster safe when you firing a coach mid-season, right? And you getting blown out by 40 every other night. No one's safe. I knew long ago that he wasn't untouchable. I don't know if that was kind of just like a smoke screen that Sean Marks like kind of threw out there to, see what kind of interest, he could garner. But, I understood that Mikal Bridges wasn't untouchable, and the Nets, they proved that when they decided to move him.
How far have we come where there were billboards right outside MSG talking about we're here to take over when Brooklyn invaded, when the Nets left the swamp and invaded Barclays Center, right? I never thought these teams would make a trade. And especially this trade, that you're sending your best player to his preferred destination, which is in the same city. But I think business trumped everything else. Business prevailed overall. And I don't think that the Nets could disregard the deals that they were getting. Because, you could argue that they had some better deals on the table. No. Houston was ready to give them back their Harden picks. They was ready to give back those picks that they made for Harden and all those other ones that they had. Like, Nets could reclaim their OG picks. And when they doing that
anyway.
Right. Right. So that's what I'm saying. They came up.
They had a great offseason.
Yeah,
this is one of a great offseason.
This is one of those times where you can objectively say both teams won the trade. Yeah. This was a win-win. This is ultimately what you look for when you make a deal in the NBA.
I'll say this though. It's one thing to have the picks. You got to hit on those picks though. So
it's true.
A win-win. Maybe it's a little too early, right? They could maybe get impatient. They could try to trade those picks for a star. They could get impatient. They could blow this.
That's true.
But they are set up. Like, they're set up in the same way that Oklahoma City was set up. And look how they rebuilt that franchise. And they did that, though, because they made the right decisions with those picks. They didn't all hit. They had some busts.
Some of them did.
Those picks, but they hit on the right guys. You know what I'm saying? So that's what the Nets have to do now.
And think about this. When they traded Kevin Durant to the Suns, they were pretty much tapped out in terms of draft capital, right? So you trade Kevin Durant to the Suns, you get 4 picks, you get Mikal Bridges, so you then flip for 5 picks, and then you end up also getting your own picks back. I mean, shout out to what the Nets did, right? Because going from contender, like an inch away from winning the title, to blowing it up overnight for a situation that was outside of your control, to then getting to where you are right now, where you're kind of in the driver's seat of your own future. You can choose what you want to rebuild, or you want to trade picks and go for somebody. I don't know. I think it's commendable. You know what I'm saying? I know a lot of people said Sean Marks because of what happened with KD and Kyrie wasn't fit for the job. Clearly, you know what I'm saying? And this is just another example of it. This is his wheelhouse. This is what he thrives in. Shout out to Sean.
Yeah, and if they do get someone like a Cooper Flagg and he ends up being what everybody thinks he's going to be, you look back at this and you can have no regrets. If you're a Knicks fan, you should have no regrets.
I was just at Rutgers University yesterday at an open practice.
Ooh.
Harper and Ace Bailey, they got 2 studs in their backyard. You know what's crazy? If the lottery shakes out a certain way, the Nets could end up with both of them.
That'd be crazy.
For 4 first-round picks, if things shake out a certain way, they can end up with both of them.
Listen, if Cooper Flagg and Caitlin Clark are going crazy on the league at the same time, Sal ain't never putting us on the wall, bro. We ain't never getting a spot on Sal's wall, bro. Like, Sal is never putting us on the wall, bro. It's gonna be great. Like, think about the idea of that Great White Hope, right? Where they were looking for the next American-born white baller, and you get 2 in the WNBA and the NBA. I think if I'm Adam Silver, if I'm the NBA WNBA commissioner, oh my God, I'm licking my chops, because we're going into the next stratosphere. We might be giving out $1 billion contracts and $1 trillion deal. The way it's looking, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you cooking right now. Hey, listen, the Nets hope that with everything you just said comes to fruition. So knock on wood. That's what they want. Yo, CJ, quick question for you. I've heard varying opinions that like Cooper Flagg and Ace Bailey aren't as far apart in terms of talent as one might think because of all the Cooper Flagg, I guess we'll call it propaganda. what can you tell us about Ace Bailey from the practice that you saw, and what do you think about the comparison in terms of who's head over head better?
I think it's a lot closer than people think. I think what gives Cooper the edge is his game is a little more refined at this point. While, a guy like Ace is like the prospect, right?
Yeah.
I feel like Cooper is maybe a little more of a sure thing, but we got an 8-minute scrimmage yesterday. They gave the media 8-minute scrimmage at the open practice, and at 8 minutes was all I need. I mean, his size, his length, his motor, his skill set. I mean, they were running him off pick and rolls, right? They were having run him off pick and rolls with high ball screens, man. And
oh my God!
And he's making the right pass, making the right decisions. I mean, it was Durant-like. I'm not gonna lie, it was Durant-like. He wasn't doing a lot in terms of he was hitting some step backs and things of that nature. It was a little Durant-like. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to KD one of the GOATs. I don't like comparisons, but like that's what came to my mind immediately. But what stood out the most about Ace was just the joy he played with. He was often the loudest person in the gym. They're doing a free throw drill. He misses. I mean, he's up there, he's up there punching the basket, the pads on the basket. Just like the energy, his energy, man.
Yeah.
His energy was crazy. And as we've seen with a lot of great players over the years, sometimes that energy is the difference. That motor is the difference. That dog is the difference. So, if the Nets are able to, land him somehow, they're going to be getting a good one. But, in terms of the comparisons between him and Flagg, I would give Flagg, kind of the edge right now from a prospect standpoint, just because he's a little more polished, while Ace Bailey is a little rawer in certain aspects of his game.
That boy good. That boy good. That boy good.
That boy good though.
That boy real good.
I love it. I love it. All right, y'all. I think we got a good preview so far of what's to come. We're gonna be back next week. Y'all gonna tap in with the media day. We're gonna get even more. We'll get more into predictions, over under, win totals, all of that as we get closer to the season. But we definitely wanted to tap in and give you an overview of what to expect from both the Knicks seasons and the Nets seasons. Before we go, just one quick question for both of y'all. CJ, I'll start with you. What does success look like for the Nets this season?
Depends on who you ask. If they, some fans tend to, are probably going to be on the side of, don't say you're going to tank and then come out here and be competitive and then you miss out on a prospect like Cooper Flagg because you decide to win 41 games. Like, you know what I'm saying? But like, I don't see it that way. I think progress from a developmental standpoint will define this next season. Are guys like Noah Clowney, Dariq Whitehead, Jalen Wilson, are they gonna take steps forward in their development and show that they can be building blocks of this rebuild, right? Can Ben Simmons stay healthy for an extended, stretch of games and, start to show some of the promise that made him a 3-time All-Star in Philadelphia, right? Is Cam Thomas going to prove that he can be a true number one option and lead this team into the future, right? So I think that, Jordy's big thing is player development, from Denver to Sacramento. A lot of the coaches he hired have a player developmental background. Like, that's their thing. So if these players, regardless of what the record is, if they can be competitive, if these young players can take steps forward in their development, I think that will be a pretty successful season for the Nets. And if you can land at the end of it all, if you can land a kid like Cooper Flagg or Ace Bailey or Dylan Harper, VJ Edgecombe, is he in this year's class, right? VJ going to Baylor, right? The Baylor.
I think so, yeah.
If you can land one of those guys on top of your young players already on the roster taking a step forward, I think that will be a hell of a season for the Brooklyn Nets.
All right. And Chris, I ask you the same question for the Knicks. From what you've heard, from what you've witnessed, what you're reporting on, what do you think a successful season for the Knicks looks like?
Well, I'll never forget Game 7 of that second round series at Madison Square Garden against the Indiana Pacers. I sat there and after the game, I asked Jalen, I'm like, hey, do you consider this season a success, given everything that you guys have gone through with the injuries, getting to the second round, going to Game 7, even though all guys went down? He said no. He said this season was not a success. We failed. So judging by that, if the Knicks exit in the second round next season with an improved roster again, that's a failure, right? So for this team, and I won't say championship or bust, right? Even though we would like to see the Knicks have their first titles in '73, but the Knicks haven't made it to the conference finals. They haven't gotten out of the second round of the playoffs since 2000, and the year before that was the year that they went to the championship and lost, right? So we're looking at a Knicks team where the stakes are high. You got already your starting center might not even be here until the new year, right? You got a little bit of uncertainty with Julius, even though Tibbs says he thinks he's healthy entering training camp. But outside of those two guys, you got Jalen Brunson, who proved to you he's a 30-point per game guy, proved to you he's a leader. You got his guys that he went to college with. You got Mikal Bridges, you got Dante DiVincenzo, you got Josh Hart. You locked in OG Anunoby, who's a huge piece to this puzzle. This is a team where we're talking about wings. We didn't even really get into the wings like that. You got Mikal and OG, and that can go toe to toe with, well, it's not Kawhi and PG anymore because they broke up, but that can go toe to toe with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, right? That can go toe to toe with, you can put OG on Giannis, right? You can put OG, we watched OG defend Embiid for spurts and look good, right? So you got two guys, and Mikal, we're going to see, right? Because defensively, we need to see if he can be a guy who can shut down a player of that caliber at his position. But you got guys that you can switch. You got guys that can be versatile, can guard up, can guard down. You got guys that can space the floor out. And now you got this reality where you might be putting Julius Randle at the 5, and that just unlocks a whole style of basketball that this team didn't even know that they could play. This is a team that I think matches up with anybody in the league, right? I think their main issue right now is the 5. How do you defend Embiid? How do you defend Jokic? How do you invent a guy like Giannis, right? But these are questions that every team is going to have. I think instead of this season answering problems, the Knicks are going to be more in position to pose them of other teams, and that's a position they haven't been in a while. So to answer your question, success this season at minimum conference finals. Otherwise, it's a repeat of the last 2 seasons, and that's not what they want. So conference finals appearance success, NBA finals appearance even more of a success. If they win a championship, there's no more New York City. The city's going to burn down if they win the title. So we'll see what happens.
Oh yeah, I could tell you that right now. We're going into full-blown dystopian future. It's going to be Escape from New York. You're going to think, you ever seen Days of Futures Past, the X-Men comic book? It's going to look like that.
Yeah.
Apocalypse is going to stand on top of MSG and say the NBA is over because the Knicks win the title. I'll tell you this. From the Nets perspective, I think the fans want a Transformer tank, right? It's Megatron until halfway into the season. Once we get to the All-Star break, you transform into the tank and you go right to the playoffs. That's as competitive as you could be, right? As for the Knicks, yeah, we've seen the second round too much. We've been there. We toured it. It's like Vegas. After a while, you know what Vegas is like. Now we got to go to another locale. Like, let's go to Paris. Let's go to Paris now, right? So I think you got to get there. You got to get to the conference finals. And I look at this window. We're in an election year. I look at it like a presidential term. You got 4 years. Like Tatum, think about the Tatum Jaylen Brown window. Mm-hmm. LeBron was still in Cleveland when their window started, right? When they were building and they went through IT and they had Kyrie and they went through all their trials and tribulations. What we talking? A 7-8 year window they almost had low key, like really like 5. COVID adds 3 years to my memory, so you know what I mean. That year I feel like I add, but they had a window and they ended up winning it. I think the Knicks have a window, but because of the prior success, anything less than a conference finals has to be viewed as some sort of failure, barring any type of catastrophe. If you had the voodoo dolls out, please tuck them for this season. Don't need none of that injuries, knocking on all the wood and saying when healthy. But I think if they are healthy for the Knicks, it's got to be conference finals. Like if you lose a competitive conference finals, we're going to be tight, but we got to be at least satisfied as long as they don't beat themselves. I think that's what the fandom is saying. And as for the Nets, you want their team to be competitive. And honestly, you need to set the foundation to grow your fan base.
That's one thing. Yeah. That's one thing I wanted to add. They got to create a culture that people want to be a part of. There is no culture in Brooklyn right now. They have to create a culture. That people think about those like early Kenny Atkinson days. You know what I'm saying? Young D'Angelo Russell out there. Like they got to create a culture that people want to be a part of, and they may not be playing in MSG, but they still in New York. You create that culture, people are gonna come. Players are gonna come.
Yeah.
Yeah. One more thing for me on the Knicks side. Just when we talk about championship or bust, we have to talk about how difficult that is, because there's 4 other teams in the East that have the same. You know what I'm saying? If they don't get to the conference finals, their season is a failure, right? That's the Celtics. You got to get back. Tatum, Tatum. I'm scared. I'm not gonna hold you. I'm scared of DNP Tatum. I don't want to see DNP Tatum, right? I don't want to see him, right? There's Philly. You got Embiid and Maxey and Paul George. That's tough. I think people forget Giannis was hurt in that first round series, and if he wasn't, the Pacers wouldn't have even been a story, right? And then on top of that, I think the Cavaliers are going to be better, because just like you talked about Kenny Atkinson, let Kenny Atkinson get a hold of Evan Mobley for a second and see what happens. I think the Cavs are going to be a problem too. And then we got the Magic, who got better, right? And the Magic were a team that the Knicks had trouble with in the regular season. I had the Magic as the nightmare matchup for the Knicks in the first round. And then we haven't even talked about Miami, and they just happen to wake up one day. If they wake up one day and decide they want to compete, they're gonna be in the conference finals, right? Like, it's crazy. So it's a small margin of error in the playoffs, but the Knicks are trying. I think the Knicks are gonna try to go for that number 1 seed. No lie.
I hear you, and we'll definitely talk more about that. Y'all enjoy Media Day. Y'all come back with all the interesting tidbits that we gonna get. Y'all, this is the pickup game, bro. Thank y'all so much for joining us. Chris, tell the people where they can find you.
Yo, you already know, NewYorkDailyNews.com. You can find all the Knicks coverage there that you want. Also on Twitter at Chris Flash, everything at Chris Flash. But really, you can find me at Madison Square Garden when the Knicks are at home. Tap in.
You need those refreshments from the press room. You already know you got a plug if you see Chris in there. Get a croissant or something. CJ, where can the people find you?
Hey, same as Chris, NewYorkDailyNews.com/Brooklyn Nets, or whatever our URL is.
Don't give them the wrong URL.
Yo, you took it back to 2008 with that URL. Okay.
You can find me on Twitter at HomesScribe, and if you you can find me on Instagram at CJ Holmes 22.
Hell yeah. Jeff J says on social media.
It don't matter, bro. It don't matter, bro. It don't matter.
He's like, they not checking for me anywhere. Jeff J says on social media. Jeff J says YouTube channel. Like this video if you love what you're hearing. Subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend. And until next time, we'll talk to you later. Tap in for the next one. Peace.